All right. Hello, everyone. Good to have you here today. Today we're going to talk about the Docs42 SharePoint Online App, and it's another Docs42 class. So for those of you that don't know the Docs42 class yet, we are having a weekly educational format. And if you're interested about more content about Docs42, just let us know, and we can always send you the Docs42 classes that are currently available. And they, of course, are also on our event page. For today, as you can see, I'm also sitting in a home office, which is currently the situation for quite everybody, isn't it? And so I'm very happy to do the webinar for you today. And as I said, we're going to focus on the Docs42 SharePoint Online App today. And the Docs42 SharePoint Online App enables you to automate documents and generate documents easily from SharePoint Online directly. We are going to have a look on 3 different roles today in terms of the Docs42 SharePoint Online App. So there's the users, of course. Let me just quickly start with sharing my screen. So there is the users. So the users will just generate the documents with the button, might not even know they use Docs42, but have a perfectly aligned process. Then, of course, there are the designers. And the designers in here, they work with SharePoint, of course, but they also work with the Docs42 add-ins in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And lastly, we also have the admins, and the admin works with SharePoint, of course, works with Docs42 Online or the server, and works with Azure Active Directory. Today, we are going to focus a lot about what the user does and what the user can do, and not so much about the admin and the design part. We're also going to cover this at high level, but for another session that we will do in May, there's going to be more focus on the admin and the design part, mainly about the admin part. Okay, so much about the scenario today. Let's start right into it. And what I want to show you first is the Docs42 employee list. So we have a simple list or a library, both works in SharePoint, and we can select whatever items we want, and we can generate that directly in SharePoint directly. And in here, let's just click on Docs42 and then click on employee list PDF, which is going to take these 3 items, the images or people, and put them into a document. You can save that and have a look onto that document right away. And you see the 3 items are in there, or the 3 people. And everything that we do in that SharePoint list will automatically be transferred to the document. So in case we, for example, also work with the different achievement, which says larger to smaller. And let's just take the first and the last. Okay, click on Docs42 and again do the same thing. And now it's going to take these. Of course, we can also select all of them at the same time. Generate the document. And if we change anything in here, of course, this will also be automatically transferred to our document once we generate it. So let's, for example, say audio is a lot better. So he's an achievement of almost 100%. And we want, sorry, I forgot to select some. Let's take all of them. Docs42, and let's click on the employee list PDF. And again, we will get a document with a PDF generation. All right, there we go. As you can see, now he has 99%. And also there's an automated chart in here, which is going to show us what the achievement actually is. Now, yesterday we just had a request on if it's possible to generate PowerPoint presentations right away. And yes, of course it is. We can do this also here. And there's another scenario that we do with Sales Report PowerPoint. And this first scenario we've seen works with our Docs42 Online, so our software as a service offering. And the second option that we now do is with PowerPoint, and it's going to work with the server that is on-premise, and that on-premise server also has access to our ERP data. So we're combining the data from our ERP system with the information that we have in SharePoint. and both at the same time. So you're not only focused to SharePoint data, you can also integrate a lot of different data sources in that document. Let's open that PowerPoint document really quick. You see there's 3 items because we selected 3, and in our template we'd only have 2 and 3 as a slide that gets repeated based on the data. And if we check, for example, 2, 4, 6, you see the only difference is the data. So it replaces each of the list items in SharePoint with the data in here, but the data structure is the same. And also the same, of course, to the slide 3 with automated charts. Also in here, directly to be done. Right, so we've opened documents so far. We haven't saved them. Now let's try saving some. There is another configuration in here which allows us to, so for example, let's save the PDF document. And we have a list that is already targeted. And let's also do the PowerPoint generation in the meantime. Save PowerPoint, so you will see both documents are saved there. And all of these documents that are saved into that library can also have the metadata they already take. So for example, I could use any information that is already here to be also used where I want to save the template. Let's go to the target library. All right, and there we go. About a minute ago, we've generated those documents by a push. You see another document that's called list flow. We also have a flow integration where if anything is changed in the in that employee list, you automatically create a flow document. So you can either have the option to do it manually, or also you can integrate it directly with the flow. Great. So far we've done a document generation where we have many list items that should come into one document. Now I want to show you a different scenario with employee contracts where we're going to generate a document. Sorry, wrong list. We're going to generate a document for each employee that is in that list. And first of all, let's just take all of them, click on Docs 42 and do Save Employee Contracts. What this is going to do is it's going to trigger one generation per employee. So we have, for example, you see Michaela in the background, you see Bodo, you see Max, and each of them will have a different document in a target library. And in the target library, of course, the documents will also be called with the name, so we know for each employee which is the right document. Let's jump into the target library. Sorry, of course, it's saved to the all contracts library. And in here again, we'll see just a few seconds ago, we've generated some new looking documents. And these documents, like for example, my employee contract, open this directly in SharePoint Online, you will see it's a nice looking PDF with the template, of course, being done in Word, as we always used to in Docs 42. And it has an automated table of contents, has some text condition, text blocks. We could also integrate automated barcodes. We have the 2 extra weeks of vacation for my special agreement, which I hope will be the case soon. No, I'm just kidding. Then, of course, there is a last page, and this last page is even a sub-document. So we can integrate documents into documents if you want. And this makes it very flexible in terms of limiting the amount of templates you usually have. Because usually we have probably a couple hundred templates with our customers, and each of them has just very minor changes. And if we just think about all the conditions we can use there, we're usually able to reduce them to a minimum of a third. Cool, so much about the generation example directly. Another thing that we in some cases might want to do is if the employee contracts library And we don't want to save all of them. We just want to see the most important one, employee contract, or we just want to check before we even save them. How is it going to look like? Let's take, for example, Bodo in this case. So we also have another call in the context menu at docs42. So let's do the employee contract in PDF in this case, and we're going to generate a document just for Bodo coming from the context menu. And you see again, it's his name as the file name. Same document as we just saved to SharePoint. Great. So much about this. Then the last scenario we also have is that you can use this from Teams directly, from Teams Online. So for example, we're going back to our employee list, and let's in this case take Max. Let's just generate the document from the context menu. So also the single generation we can do from the context menu if you like to do this. Then there is a PDF generation, and we again will have the option to do a download of that document. Max manager, and here we have his document. Again, same document like the one I just had, just with different data. The missing links of these documents that we haven't covered yet is the templates, and so we have a docs42 template library in SharePoint Online, and in that library we can, for example, let's take the selected employee list, which is the document we generated first, and in here we can open that document and directly jump into the designer mode. So if we go back to the slide we had before, we're basically starting now with the designer mode directly in here. So this is something that will be done by very few people, so usually like 2 to 10 people. And in here, just quickly log in SharePoint Online. Okay, then let's generate the document locally. So this is the docs42 add-in. You see there is 2 IDs that we are going to take for the test today. This is a structure that is built up for the docs42 app, and there's also a sample template on how you do this. And we're also going to cover this in the next webinar, where we're going to do a lot more about the technical details. But for today, let's just generate the first 2. So as a designer, you can also see the document just in Word directly. And theoretically, also, if you don't work with the SharePoint app, you could also just work in Word only. Let's view them side by side. This is the generated document, and you see there is, for example, the progress bar. And if we want to add any additional data, we can click on the docs42 data map up here. And then we'll open the data map designer with all the different data sources we have. So like the CRM, the Dynamics ones, the SAP. Also, if you have anything like SQL or Excel, you can integrate those, and we're very flexible in combining those. The way you integrate data, just as a very brief scenario, we can click on Insert Data field on top, and then anything that's in here can be drag and drop directly into that document. Great, so much about the design part. Let's, as a last part, jump into the configuration of a button. And for this, in each site where you want to use the button, you will have a list that's called command bar config. Just open this already, so you see the docs42 command bar config. And the one, for example, we just used is the employee list PDF. Click on edit here. So we see the name of the button. Is it active? I've just done the German webinar before, so apologize that this is still in German, but I can translate. So basically it says only if it's active, then the list name, then where's the docs42 tenant. Those of you who are familiar with docs42 already know what this should be. In here you can either use your cloud tenant or your docs42 online tenant like we do. So in our case, that's that one. And also in here, you can configure that this tenant can work with the employee list with an app ID. And that app ID in here is also the same that we use in our client ID right here for the app. And those IDs, where are they coming from? It's a configuration in Azure Active Directory. So that's also part of the admin configuration. So you need to start with a Docs42 app. And we'll have one app right here and another one that's called Docs42 Online. There's a documentation, of course, of this, and it's not really complicated. I just want to show you because we get an ID in here that is the application ID, and that's the B51, and also the B51 is used in here. So that also this is going to work with Azure Active Directory, and in here you can also define what this app has in regards of the permissions, and ours has all rights in SharePoint at the moment, which of course, if you want, you can also reduce those rights. Technically, just a comment for those that are interested in those. As you see, this is a delegated permissions. The app itself will never ever have more permissions than the user that triggers the generation. So, for example, I will always have only the rights my user has. The rest, as you see here, is the generate document generation. We have also a template where is it saved. As you see, it's again our selected employee list, the one we already used. We also have a parameter employee ID in here, which is the parameter that I've just filled in with the IDs in the document generation before. Remember this. And then lastly, we have the query string in here. And that is something that if you already work with Docs42, you're familiar with. It's not really complicated. It's also documented. And the simplest one I can do right now is just, I'm going to switch this to generation of a document as an output of docx. And that's also, in this case, to make it more readable, employee list Word. Let's click on save. And this is going to instantly change the button in our list. So let's jump back to the employee list. And here take some of these items and again, click on Docs42. And now you see this has already changed to employee list Word. And then we get a docx document instead of a PDF. In terms of scenario, that's very handy because usually in many cases we have about 80% PDFs that are generated from a scenario, but there are also some minor scenarios where there should be a docx because you still want to change stuff. In this case, you could have the user choose the option on which one he wants to generate. Same document as you see. All right, and if we switch this back, it's a very easy thing to do because the only thing we need to is just go back to edit. We want to call this PDF again. And also down here, we will call this generate a PDF. Click on save. And if we go to that again, let's just click on Docs42, employee list PDFs. You see it's already changed again. And we are back generating PDFs. Perfect. So much for the technical scenario. Just gonna briefly jump back into what's upcoming. So you see down here, there is a link to all our events. You also see there are new webinars coming up the next Wednesdays. So we're going to do the automate and manage sales process with Firestart. We're going to do a session on how you start from basically scratch. Then we will also cover the CE solution we have. So also like we have it in SharePoint, there's another one in CE. And the detailed SharePoint app configuration is going to take place on the 20th of May. If you want to register, just have a look on our event page. Let me just quickly check if there are any questions. All right, so it seems that everything is still clear. If not, just email me right here. I'm happy to take any questions, Also, if you want to have an individual webinar about Docs42 based on your scenario, we're happy to do this. And yeah, in the meantime, thank you very much. See you hopefully soon. Take care and all the best from home office. Yeah. Bye-bye.